This episode of the DTFH is brought to you by Squarespace.com. Head over to squarespace.com/Duncan for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code DUNCAN to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Alright, let's do this.
I'm coming.
I figure that because this is an episode about conspiracy theories, that doesn't create a better operating code simulation.
Greetings to you, sweet friends. It is I, D. Trussell, and you are listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. We've got a very special episode for you today with the host of the Tinfoil Hat podcast about conspiracy theories, Sam Tripoli. I was actually at a party recently, and somebody backed me in the corner and accused me of being a shill for the CIA. It was one of the weirdest things ever. He said, I think you know things you don't talk about on your podcast, and you're getting money from George Soros. And I said to him, and he was like, if you think I'm going to take the time to reverse that, to understand whatever it was that you just told me, you're out of your mind. I'm just going to assume that whatever it was that you just said is filled with satanic symbolism, allusions to goat-headed beings. And then I'm like, wait a minute, why are you so angry at goats? Look, have you ever met a goat? They're actually really sweet. They're wonderful. I just saw a goat in a park near my house that someone had wrapped rainbow tape around its horns, and it was really fun. Like, goats are just basically dogs with horns and weird eyes. And he's like, see, that's exactly what somebody in a satanic organization would say. You want me to like goats? I'm like, well, what have goats done? They make cheese. Do you hate goat cheese? Have you ever had goat cheese on your salad? It's delicious. He's like, goats, I don't want to talk about this because I know for some reason goats are evil and things going backwards are evil. And then I said, have you ever considered that maybe the thing that's evil isn't outside of you but inside of you, and you're projecting your own darkness onto the world, and that the people you fear the most are actually people who have just identified the fact that there's a tendency in lazy people to demonize the world while ignoring their own internal difficulties. And whenever this happens, there's witch burnings and crucifixions. And so some smart people just decided they wanted to camouflage, or at least create a couple of extra steps in between you and information that you could potentially use for evil things, because you haven't worked out your own interior sadness and pain. That's all. He thanked me, saying, I never really thought of that stuff before. I never looked at it in that way. I shook his hand and implanted a Galvax nanodiode into his palm so that we could track him and make sure that he doesn't cause any trouble for any more podcasters. We've got a wonderful episode for you today. We're going to jump right into it, but first, this episode of the DTFH is brought to you by the throbbing lords and ladies of HTML glory over at squarespace.com. Head over to squarespace.com/Duncan for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Duncan to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. There are so many beautiful things you could do with Squarespace. You can turn your cool idea into a new website. You can showcase your work. You can blog or publish your content, promote your business, announce an upcoming event or special project, or even create a website to give yourself awards. Have you ever noticed this? All you got to do is just make a cool looking website and start giving yourself awards or your friends awards or people awards, and they just assume that it's coming from some sophisticated award agency. For example, you could buy the domain name sophisticatedaward.agency.com and just start giving awards for anything to anybody, and more than likely they're going to retweet it. They're going to talk about it. You're going to make people's lives just by giving awards. We're evolved monkey creatures that like to award each other with ridiculous symbols. You can do that by creating a Squarespace website dedicated to giving awards. Give awards to your parents. Check out the domain name, parentsawards.com, parent of the million year awards.com, awardyourparents.com. These domain names are available and they're ready for you right now to build a website and start giving out those sweet trophies to people who deserve it. I want an award. Why don't one of you sweeties out there build a website and give me an award? Awards.com is available. Awards, like awards for award shows. That's the thing. The people who don't get the awards that deserve the awards are the people who put on the award shows. Let's think about that. There's the Oscars, but we need to have an Oscars for the Oscars, like the best moments in the Oscars, so we can give Oscars to the people who did the best job on the Oscars while receiving their Oscars. Oscars.com. It's available. Check it out. Squarespace, you can create a beautiful website, and they give you everything you need to do that. They give you incredible templates created by world-class designers, powerful e-commerce functionality that lets you sell anything online, the ability to customize look and feel, settings, products, and more with just a few clicks. Everything's optimized for mobile right out of the box. It's a new way to buy domains, and you can choose from over 200 extensions. They have analytics that help you grow in real time. They have 24/7 award-winning customer support. Squarespace, it's used by architects, art galleries, fine artists, graphic designers, furniture makers, museums, and even by invisible groups of people who want to create seemingly inconspicuous websites impregnated with symbols and ideas that could potentially help bring about an era of global peace. Squarespace. The main thing is this. I use Squarespace for my website, duncantrussell.com. Every time I upload an episode of the DTFH, I go to a Squarespace website, and I love it. Never had any problems. I don't advertise anything on this podcast that I don't use in real life, and I highly recommend squarespace.com. Right now, head to squarespace.com/Duncan for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code Duncan to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Squarespace, it's time to start a new renaissance. Much thanks to my 1,069 Patreon subscribers. You are my patrons. You own me. You are who I bow to every single day. And sure, sometimes I misbehave and you have to discipline me in different ways, but I'm learning from you. You're teaching me. And yeah, I know I'm disobedient from time to time, but every time you correct me, I am so very grateful to you, my sweet Patreon patrons. If you're interested in taking a deep dive into the coral reef that is the DTFH over at Patreon, then why not head over to patreon.com/DTFH and check out if it's anything like a coral reef at all. And depending on your knowledge of coral reefs, you're either going to think, yeah, this is exactly like a coral reef, or you're going to think, what the fuck was he talking about? Either way, I hope that you'll subscribe. And if you do, you will have instant access to interviews that I haven't released yet on the main feed. For example, floating over there right now is a fantastic conversation with the great Buddhist teacher, Jack Kornfield, that's going to be coming out soon. There's also one over there with Roshi Joan Halifax. These are all coming out next week or the week after, but if you want to get early access to that kind of stuff, it's over there. Also, I release interview-free opening rambling things that are usually at the beginning of this podcast, but they last about an hour, and one of those goes out a month over at the Patreon. So if you just want extra DTFH stuff, if you just want to shove your face deep into the undergut of the DTFH and just breathe in that sweet, oily aroma, that mixture of roses and dimethyltryptamine and sassafras grass and windy days on some alien beach where double-headed octopi juggle human beings shaped like pyramids in front of a triple sun sky, then you want to head over to patreon.com/DTFH and sign up. Today's guest is a brilliantly funny comedian, and he's also the host of a fantastic podcast called The Tinfoil Hat, which is an exploration of conspiracy theories. They're actually doing a show in San Francisco. If you're listening to this before June 1st or June 2nd, in other words, if you're listening to this right after I uploaded it, this weekend, June 1st and June 2nd, the Tinfoil Hat podcast is going to be in Sacramento and San Francisco. They're going to be at Cobb's, and they're going to be at the Punchline in Sacramento. It's going to be a fun night of comedy, and more than likely, there's also going to be government agents in the room watching the performers to make sure that they aren't a threat to the state. That's going to be fun. Okay, everybody, open up your mouths and allow massive swarms of nanobots to go spraying into the sky, spinning down deep into the beautiful ears of today's guest, the host of the Tinfoil Hat podcast, comedian Sam Tripoli. God bless you, Sam Tripoli. Thank you for returning to the podcast.
This is my third podcast. I don't know how many times I've been on, but this is my third podcast in the third studio.
Today?
No, of yours.
Oh, yeah. I always am moving around.
We're
man.
moving and shaking. The bunker's always moving.
Descendants of Cain.
Yeah, dude.
Have you ever heard that term before?
No.
So like that, you know about Cain and Abel?
Yeah.
And like Cain's the first murderer.
Of all time?
Yeah, Cain. Well, I mean, mythologically,
yeah.
Cain is jealous of Abel because Abel
Gets all the chicks?
Basically, God favored Abel. Like Abel, they both made some offering to God, and God like somehow preferred Abel's offering. I'm butchering the story.
That's fine.
And then Cain was like, well, fuck this. And then like beat his head in with a rock. And then God appears and says to Cain, hey, where's Abel? And Cain says that famous line, am I my brother's keeper? How should I know? And God, being God, is like, you fucking killed him, dumbass. Like, we don't have to do forensic files. I'm the creator of the universe. And then Cain got the mark of this. So it's really interesting because, like, Cain receives a mark. And this is a mark that's supposed to make him an outcast for eternity. God doesn't kill him, doesn't imprison him. And so Cain goes east of Eden to the land of Nod, and his descendants were the musicians and the artists. And so a lot of...
So we're from scumbags? Is that what they're saying?
Well, yeah, we're descendants of the tribe of Cain. We have the mark of Cain on us as comedians. We're always moving around. We're like, you know, you're never in one place. You're always on. You're always
that's
roaming
so
and
interesting.
roving.
For
and,
sure,
yeah,
dude.
Always moving around, and you're always an outside. You know, like... comedians and artists tend to be outsiders if you think about it. Like you know, they always
For sure.
Yeah, so it's like
sure.
It's kind of like an identification of a type of personality. You think of yourself as an outsider?
Oh, 100. I've lived in LA for almost 20 years. I couldn't feel more outside of a town than and I don't hate LA. Yeah. I mean, you come to your place, you know, it's so interesting. I love going to new areas of LA that I've never seen before, and it's just like the history and the arch. Like, your area is really amazing because there's like no one house is anything like the other house. You got this amazing house.
You mean Silver Lake or this little patch
where you are right now?
Right, gotcha.
You know, and like it's next to a nice house, but then there's a shanty house that looks right next door.
Yeah.
And then there's like a 3-layered apartment built. It's like it's so and like how you get here is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I love LA, but in terms of the business, couldn't be farther away. Couldn't be far. And I'm okay. I just like to do me, dude. You know, I like to do me. Back to the Cain story though. It's so interesting how like violence is such a big part of a holy book. Do you know?
Yeah.
But sex is just the most taboo thing possible. You know, it's like, and Hollywood's very much like that too. It's like you can show as much violence as you want.
Yes.
You show some weird sex shit, heads explode. Like, you know, sponsors. We can't sponsor this.
Yeah.
You know, you're showing two people hooking up. That's wrong. But the scene before, this guy just went on a giant shooting spree. And,
yeah.
You know, and it's just it's very interesting that, you know, the morals are taught through violence. But yeah.
Yeah. If like we jumped into an alternate dimension, like think how odd the conversation would go. Where it's like, man, don't you think it's weird? Like all day long, we can show on TV fucking.
Yeah.
We can show anal, like jizz shots. You saw the recent fucking America's Got Talent where they swam through the jizz pond and like, you know, but how come we can't show cutting people's heads off?
Yeah.
How come we're not allowed to do that? That person would seem so creepy. You'd be like, wait, hold on, you're even connecting the two things at all? Like, why do you even think the two things are connected? Why do you want to show people getting their heads cut off? I don't even understand. No, I don't want to show that shit. It would make more sense to be like, you know, yeah, of course, show people fucking.
Jizz for days, dog. Welcome to Jizz for Days.
Jizz for days. The life cycle. Behold, the beginning of the human life cycle.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I think it must have to do with like, we're more terrified of the beginning of things than the end of things for some reason. Like the end of things, it just, I don't know. It's somehow people are afraid of death. It's weird though. Here's what's very interesting. We show death on TV
all the time,
but in actual real life, we hide death and we hide sex. Like if I'm fucking, I close my curtains.
Yes.
And I feel obscene if I haven't closed my curtains for a second. You know, like I don't know if that's ever happened where you're having sex and you realize your windows are wide open. You catch a reflection of yourself in the window. It's nighttime, and you know, like whoever was walking by just saw people fucking.
Yeah,
and it's a feeling of like, oh no, we must shut the window.
It comes off as rude unless you're into that,
right?
Which there's people like. I think the whole thing about having sex in public weird places, which I've done before, is the thrill of almost getting caught. It's like, can we do this without getting caught?
Yeah,
but the thought of like having sex and then forgetting to close the window is frightening. You know, it's like rude to your neighbors, and they get to see your hump technique.
Rude to your neighbors, polite to your stalkers. Do you like? I have always been annoyed. Like in the times, like you know, like when you're dating somebody, you know, and you end up with one of that public sex people. And they're like, let's fuck in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You're like, come on. I don't want to fuck in the bathroom. It's like, that is, of all my fetishes, man, that one is really low on the charts. What about you?
But it is on your power rankings chart, though.
It doesn't make the chart.
It doesn't make the top 10. It's like a very, very distant one.
Years ago when I was dating this girl and she was into that shit and like, we had to go on top of this fucking water tower. Like, and there was like a metal grate. It's like a metal grate. It's like just a metal stairway, this fucking weird remote water tower. Like, like an area where people either go to fuck or bury bodies. And you know, like you want to like, this is when I was in like community college. I was in community college, but you want to seem cool.
Yeah.
So you want to be like, oh, yeah, you better believe I want to fuck on top of this water tower. You're like trying to do special moves up there, but you're just getting that imprint of the grate on your skin, and you're just embarrassed.
It's so interesting. I literally got told all the time when I was young that women saw me as the weird sex guy, their weird sex guy. So they hooked up with me when they wanted to do weird shit, like cross stuff off their list, you know? And now that I'm an old man and I'm in a relationship, but even when you're in a relationship, you just like to engage what the other sex thinks of you. And I've become the serious relationship guy. Like, and that's as you get older, women see you more as the serious relationship guy.
Right.
And the young guys as the get weird kind of guys, which is very interesting.
I don't know. You know, I think there's like, that can happen, but also there's like the element of like, you know, you're like an older, you know, you're like, there's something like, I don't know, it seems like some people really like the get off on the idea of like you have learned all these things,
Yes.
and now you can sort of, you know what I mean? Like think of I don't know. Have you ever tied? You probably have tied many people up, right, Sam?
You know what? The BDSM thing has never gotten into me. I loved some of your bathroom reading stuff that's out there. That was pretty cool.
What Oh, what?
There's a magazine out there, something about slaves.
Oh yeah. So that's like
That's your thing.
No, I wouldn't call it my thing, but I know how to do it. And it's like a thing you learn how to do, and you start off doing it, and you usually don't know how to do it at all.
So you're not into it yet. You understand how to do it. It's not really your thing.
Sounds like I'm dodging it. I'm not ashamed.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
interesting that you have a skill in something you don't really care that much.
no,
for.
I think I like it. It's a fun. I think sex is like, obviously a form of communication, and there's all these different languages, and that's one of the languages.
Yeah.
And that's and just like any other language, you can learn a few different languages. But am I into like that language in particular? No, but it's definitely a wonderful skill to have, because if some people really enjoy being dominated, and so like they love it. And if you don't,
Where do you think that comes from? What do you think that's from? I've always wondered, because it seems like BDSM has always been this little secret that a lot of people are into, but not a lot of people talked about. And then like 50 Shades of Grey, which is like the McDonald's of BDSM, comes out, and it seems to be more open, and it just seems to be like way more popular than ever. Maybe I'm wrong. It's just maybe people are more talking about, more honest with it. What do you think that type of sex comes from? Like, what is the attraction to that?
I think it's a way for people to. So, like, everyone's been injected with various levels of sexual guilt, I think. You know, like they think their bodies are fucked up, or they think they're dirty, or they think there's something, there's all these hangups they have. Maybe they're nervous about this thing or that thing. And so the moment that someone has been dominated, and when people think about this stuff, they're so confused about it. Like, number one, most people think it involves pain.
Yeah.
In other words, it's like sadism or masochism, and it's in there, BDSM, but it's like that when I remember before I knew anything about it, I thought it's about hurting people. Why would you ever want to hurt someone? Why would anyone want to be hurt?
Right.
But that's really not what it's about.
Okay.
It's sensual. It's about the spectrum of experience, and for some people, it's incredibly liberating to no longer have to worry about being in control when they are having sex, because that's, for a lot of people, is a real bummer. Some people are just, they're nervous about making decisions during sex, like they feel guilty or afraid or whatever. So when all of that has been removed from them, and you've done it in the right way, it's really a form of hypnosis.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that then for them it becomes this like liberating, incredible moment where they no longer have to feel guilty for having sex. I think that's one version of it, and there's other versions too. It's just like there's something incredible about it's like, punching your time card at the end of the day. Like you're off the clock now.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything except submit.
When you talk to these BDSM mistresses, and I know a lot of them, Soma Snake Oil, Justine Cross, they're wonderful.
I know
people.
Justine Cross. She's cool.
Very wonderful. I had her on. She's
been on the show too
to talk about basically like how they took down Backpage and all that stuff. And there was some shady stuff with Backpage, but it's put these girls who work in the sex industry in a bad place.
Mistress Justine Cross, Los Angeles. Look her up, guys. She's wonderful. Has a wonderful little. I don't know if she's still in Culver City, but she's got a nice little spot out there.
There's a wonderful lady named Soma Snake Oil, and I don't know if she's still with her husband. I haven't seen pictures of them together, But she hired me to do her husband's Her husband is or was Fat Mike from NoFX.
Yeah.
And I got hired to do his birthday party at a BDSM bar.
Oh, wow.
And I showed up, and everybody was either cross-dressers or leather daddies, right?
Yeah.
And I was bombing. Like, I was bombing, dude. And I got heckled by this guy that looked like a cross-dressing minotaur. And so every time my jokes would bomb, he'd yell, "I want to fuck you in the ass." That's what he'd yell. Dude, God bless him, because he saved my set.
Wow.
Because my ability to rip this guy.
Yeah.
I stopped doing jokes, and it just became a comedy duo. Sam and the Minotaur, and we just started fucking ripping into each other, and it was fun. It was fun, but she's in that whole world. And I had Brian Jarvis one time when I was doing the Naughty Show back in the day.
Yeah,
do something at the Improv where I wanted to do it like. Do you remember when Johnny Carson would have the guy who came out with the animals?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And he would like have the animals there, and Johnny would ask all these questions.
Yeah.
So I did that with I had Jarvis play the Gimp. And I had her come on and explain her pet slave and talk about him like he was a wild animal for the crowd to watch.
That is so funny. That is hilarious.
It was really funny, dude.
Yeah, man. That's BDSM has got to be one of the most misunderstood things, but like you learn it. That's the point. It's a skill. You learn it, and I barely know anything about it. Like people like Justine Cross, these are people who are like they're like people who've been to like they're physical therapists. They're like it's a true skill. It's not, and it is, and it's functions on like so many different levels. It's like camping. Like you got to know how to do knots.
Yeah.
And also, it's like there's a lot of safety involved. Like you've got to, because like you got to make sure you're able to get the person out of the knots if something goes weird. And also, it's like so deeply embedded in consent, which is that it's like it is so based on like a consensual interaction. So there's this entire like very, very intense. Like you have to be so attuned to what's happening with the person that you're with, because number one, they want to go into this state, but number two, the moment they're like, stop, it's like turning a TV off. Like there is nothing else except you're untying them, because it's like, it's really serious. So there's like this real ethic around it that I don't think people understand. There's got to be like, if they say stop, there has to be a complete under 100% understanding that it's going to stop. Well, you go immediately out of that character. Like you go out of that part of yourself, because everybody has inside of them a submissive part of themselves and a dominant part of themselves. Everyone does. And if you become a dominant person, like some people aren't very dominant in real life. Right. But you hear a lot of times these dominant people become submissive. Well, sometimes submissive people can become it gives them a chance to experiment with like being supremely dominant. And that's a personality that is inside of everyone. Right. And you see it come out of people sometimes. And if it comes out in the wrong place, it's incredibly cloying, and it's like really fucking. They're really like all these submissive people just start going like dictator crazy on people. Yeah. Well, how often have you seen that when you get like some shithead? That's a great point, dude. And you give them any kind of power. You could even say that with Hollywood and the Me Too movement. We saw these guys who kind of like writer, theater guys get this power, and then you find out they're just like turned into these monsters. Yeah. And, and it's just like that's a very interesting point, dude. Yeah, I never even thought about that. Yeah, and that's that. So that part of a personality, that's a very important part of anyone's personality. You need that. Like you need to be able to like suddenly become something really strong. That is a great golf club to have in your golf bag. That's a great brush to have in your paintbrush collection. But you need to know when to bring that out and who that is and why it comes out. If it comes out like in the wrong time, that's usually like when you say, about a person by the way they treat a waiter. Yeah. Right? And that's because what's happening is that you'll be with someone who seems super nice, and then someone who's their servant appears, and they take on the role of some kind of like domineering piece of shit. Like, excuse me, the service around here is terrible. It's like, go do that in the fucking dungeon, bitch. Not at a restaurant. Save it for the dungeon. Yeah, save it for the dungeon. This person didn't sign up for that. I feel if more people have more dungeons, we'd have less road rage, less people wouldn't have to go to couples therapy. They could get it out there. Yeah, because like there's an affliction that people either feel too in control or not in control. People feel like they have too much power, and then they get all stressed out because they feel like they've got just too much shit to worry about. Too many plates are spinning, and they're freaking the fuck out. and they just want to relax and put on a diaper and get fucking spanked for a little while so they could just like chill out. Or people feel like they don't have any control at all. And so the moment there's an opportunity to have any kind of control, all the anger that's gone along with their complete sense of worthlessness or impotence or whatever comes spewing out on top of it. That's the other thing with BDSM is people think it's that it has anything to do with anger. Like, sit the fuck down.
Yeah.
It isn't that. Like, at least my experience with it is it's love. Like, because if you're with somebody who wants to be dominated,
Right.
you're giving them all the attention. Like, you're giving them, like, they're getting 100% pure, unadulterated attention that is
Yes.
completely focused on this particular fetish for them. And even though it's coming across as you being like, don't move, sit down.
Is BDSM, would you say this is a first world form of sex? I mean, what's the BDSM scene in like Nigeria like? Do they have that?
I think it's universal. I mean, it's certainly in Japan. Like, if you look at like there's binding and like all of this stuff. I think it's a universal. It must be. I mean, you can see that in all forms of sexuality, someone is being more dominant than the other person. So it's already embedded in the way we have sex as it is. Like, someone is the one who's like deciding, what's going down. That's one. I mean, it's not always like that. If you get into like tantra or you're merging with a person or you're becoming one identity, I don't know. It changes then, but certainly it's like, yeah.
Do you ever add all this stuff in kind of like an MMA form of sex where you're doing a little BDSM, a little tantra or whatever you just said?
I don't think so. It feels like they're different. It feels like the two things are like separate or altogether kind of separate. I mean, certainly like after you have like dominated someone or been dominated.
Have you been dominated?
Yeah.
And how'd that feel?
Oh, it's it's happened to me a few times and only a couple times that I really like it. Like because there's this thing called subtrance. Have you ever heard that before?
No, it is.
So that's like the hypnotic state someone being dominated goes into. So like it's an actual state of consciousness that they enter into, and you can't fake it. You can't. Number one, you can't fake dominating somebody,
Really?
and they can't fake being. You could try, but it's not real. Like there's actual submission and domination, or there's like people who went to Hot Topic and bought a pair of bullshit.
There's no acting. It's either you're in or you're out.
You are either, if you're in if you're in any situation where there is a competition or where there is an interaction based on hierarchy or control, you're either being dominated. I guess the way to put it is like, it's full surrender.
Right.
And you don't fake that.
Right.
Like, that's not... And someone who likes to be dominated, if they get around someone who doesn't know how to do it, that person's going to do, like, all this weird, stupid, embarrassing shit, probably from reading 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
And the person who likes to be dominated isn't going to get, like, their itch scratched because the person
So interesting.
doesn't actually know how to do it. Like, the thing about it is you actually have to do it.
Yes.
It's not like my dogs. Like, my dogs, either they sit or they don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, it's just that's it. Like,
It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's the identical thing.
It is so interesting, just the human sexuality. Like,
it is.
It's so interesting. Everywhere else is like made to survive. The species got to survive. We're so complex. And just like all the different things that get into, what you're into. And, it's just so interesting because it's like, I think we're one of the few species that has sex for enjoyment. I think there's like a set of monkeys out there that maybe does that. But for the most part, everything else is just like to survive all the species.
Well, you know what? We don't know. And the thing is, we don't fucking know what's going down. Like when you see like a seahorse.
Yeah, you don't know if he's just having fun. Got a couple hours, let me knock this out. We're like, he's mating to survive.
Yeah. That's what we like to think. We don't have any idea what pheromones are being released or like, like how long he's been like hoping for this moment or like, we don't know. But I sex is such a incredible, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's an occult activity in the sense that it's a hidden activity. It's an activity that is not spoken of, and yet it's in front of everyone all the time. It's an activity that's right out in front of everybody. Right out in front of everybody. It's on billboards. It's on all over TV.
Now it's social media. It's all the time.
Yeah.
I was just talking about the amount of dicks that like millennials have seen in their life compared to like even a guy, a male millennial. The amount of dicks he's seen in his life versus what his grandfather or his great grandfather saw. It's not even close. I mean, they've had porn on their phone forever.
I guess it's like, as they say, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. Like, I'm sure at the beginning of the human, humans moving from like proto-hominid to hominid, everyone was just very comfortable seeing dicks swinging all over the place.
You think it was until one dude showed up with a really big dick and everyone's like, okay, let's cover these up because nobody could get any. Nobody wanted to hook up with you. You're like, it was good 2 weeks ago. Yeah, then Thor showed up with the hammer of God, and now I'm looking at your popcorn shrimp you got over here.
I mean, that's one of the beautiful, humbling things about Burning Man is it's like you do see the spectrum of dicks at Burning Man, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like you do like. And you do have to deal with the fact that it's like, man, they're fucking like massive dick trunks swinging everywhere. Yeah, it's hilarious. Some chieftain with a small dick was like, all right, we got to start wearing fucking loincloths. This is ridiculous. Put something on that fucking thing. God told me to. God's ashamed of you. God told me to.
That's so true, dude.
Yeah, I there's something in it that's so. It's like I like it as a, you and I in particular, we love thinking about conspiracy theories and, particularly like brainwashing, conditioning, state conditioning, and like for a lot of people, they don't realize they're conditioned and that they're brainwashed and that they've been intentionally brainwashed and conditioned. So many people walk through the world, and in their mind, every idea that they have is their own unique idea, and everything that they do is just something they just decided to do. They think they're autonomous. They think they're completely in control of their lives, and they have no idea that so much of what they think and so much of what they do and so much of their feelings about this thing or that thing have been intentionally embedded into their minds by the state,
dark forces,
or light forces, parents, the state.
Okay.
So for people who aren't really aware of their conditioning, one great place to start is just, go. If you think you're not brainwashed, take your clothes off and go stand outside. How does that feel? Just thinking about doing it, you're already like, oh my fucking, I would never do that. Right. Well, why? I mean, are you evil? Is your body evil? Are babies evil? When babies are born, is this someone who is what's the exhibitionist or baby's exhibitionist?
Right.
Should we like figure out some kind of way to like put a cloak over a woman's pussy so they give birth into a bag so that we can keep the baby covered at all times? So
baby jumpsuit.
Yeah, a baby jumpsuit, something. That is a wonderful starting off point to understand just how absolutely controlled humanity is.
I couldn't agree more. There is from the beginning, there is a pounding in of how we act and what the rules are and all that stuff. And we see from everybody. It's just like whether you're Jewish, Armenian, Italian, whatever group, your grandparents, your parents always tell you the story of your people and the history of your people, and it gets passed on from generation to generation in that type of brainwashing as well. And then as we grow up, there's the brainwashing of interaction between people, and in which these are dark forces come to these people over history time have screwed these people, and there's that, and these people who maybe you're 20 years old But 200 years ago, these people screwed your people, so that has to be rectified, and there has to be revenge on that, because this happened many moons ago, and we can, and then it just keeps going back, and it's this weird cycle of just like, you're right, brainwashing that goes on.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating condition, because you could almost consider you could just think like, well, all those things that are inside of your mind that are making you feel guilty or ashamed about certain things you want to do, those have been put into you by some experience or by a person or something like that. And you could almost like it just as a lens to look at it through, just for fun. I'm not saying this is how it is. You could start thinking of those things as living entities. So you could almost say, like, you have a parasitic thought pattern that's been implanted into your mind by a manipulative sorcerer, consciously or subconsciously.
Yes.
But there's no way to scan for it. Like, I can go to the doctor and get a scan for parasites, and the doctor can be like, yeah, man, you've got a fucking tapeworm. But as of yet, we don't have a methodology for scanning a person and being like, hey, man, you have got, like, inside of you, man, you don't even realize this, but you've got a fucking Marlboro Light demon. You know what I mean? You have deep inside of you a Pfizer entity is living inside of you.
No, I get that.
You know what I mean? Like, you have living within you a Gucci entity, like all the corporate brand names that you're like connected to, or suddenly feel, oh man, you're fucking crawling with Comedy Store, dude. Like, you've got like Comedy Store all over you, man.
You got the cigarette demon in you.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. That's it. That's what it is. It's a form of possession. I was just having this conversation with Sean Stone. It's like, but we don't call it demonic possession. We call it proclivities, habituations. It's core, like we're drawn to certain brands. Like, what do you like? Are you an Apple guy?
Yeah, I am, and I hate it. But then I can't. The thought of getting off Apple scares me.
Yeah.
I go, maybe I'll go with those HTC phones, maybe. And then it gets close, and I'm like, no, I can't leave Apple.
Yeah.
I can't leave Apple. And then Apple sends out that operating system that just is like a suicide note for your phone, and then your phone just commits honorable seppuku, and like the battery can't drain, the operating system doesn't work. So you're like, oh, dude, my phone's not working. They're like, oh, it sounds like you got to upgrade to a new phone. And it's like their evil plan goes through. And I'm like, I'm going to remember this next time I have to renew. And then the day comes and boom, I'm back on Apple.
That's it. Yeah. And now if we could jump into another dimension very close to this, and you would just say, oh yeah, you've been hypnotized by a cabal of sorcerers into using their magical implement.
Steve Jobs sorcery.
Yeah, absolutely. You're one of the, you've been sucked into this cabal of sorcerers who has in an exchange. It's an exchange. It's almost a symbiotic relationship. They would like to say it's purely symbiotic and not parasitic.
Yeah.
But like you have, basically a familiar. Like, you've gone to the Tower of Apple. They've given you a familiar, this imp creature that answers all your questions and allows you to connect with other people. And the imp from time to time goes and stares in a crystal when it's getting the update. And like, it comes back with like a slightly different skin tone.
Now it's got a limp.
Yeah. Maybe a limp. Maybe, it's time to get a new imp. Time to get a new imp from the Apple Tower, So this is just another example of how we have become completely conditioned and subjugated by corporations.
A great example of this is political correctness, man. How there are people that have been trained, brainwashed, just to hear a word, and the word itself is enough to go nuts.
Right.
And there's no context to it. Like, before, like, the political correctness we know of now, before it was, if you were dirty, people would flip out. If you said the word Jesus, just the word Jesus. There used to be this great comedy club called Riddles. It's still around, but the old location in Chicago at Orland Park was Riddles. And you could literally say anything you wanted in this room. It was one of my favorite rooms to play. But the minute you mentioned Jesus, it just shut down. And no matter what you said, you could be like, Jesus is the greatest thing ever. People, boom, shut down. Not in a comedy club. You don't talk about Jesus. Well, fast forward to 2018. Any word that comes up within a stand-up comedy context, that they have deemed as negative gets a shutdown from the crowd, regardless of the context in which you're using it. And that's all comedy is context. What is the context of what I'm talking about in terms of whether you should get upset or not? But we've conditioned people to use political correctness over common sense.
Well, this is why I think the term curse word is so funny.
Yeah.
Because it really is magic. Like a curse word. It's a word of cursing. And if you utter certain words of cursing, it really does change the energy of a room.
That's so interesting. I've never thought about that.
You've cast a spell. So at that moment that you utter the forbidden word, now if you look at the history of forbidden words, it's really quite interesting. For example, in Israel, when the temple was still built, I read this in this book on Jesus by Reza Aslan, but when the temple was still built, you would, once a year, the high priest would go into like the inner sanctum of the temple and utter the name of God, some version of Jehovah, Yahweh, some word, some unspeakable name. And the priest would go into this sanctum with a rope tied around his waist, because the idea was if you utter the name of God, you could actually be struck down. You could die. And so they wanted to have a rope so that they didn't have to go in and get your body, because you're in a place that you're only supposed to go once a year. And then they could drag your body out after uttering the great name, whatever it may be. And so if you look at the history of forbidden words, it's not a new phenomenon. Like for us, we find it a little like jarring, I think, because the word has like changed, like now it's like one word and it's like the word has changed. Certainly there's infinite logical arguments for why that is a triggering word, and a lot of us, man, just don't even like realize it. Like, like I was riding in the back of a Uber talking to the driver as he's just basically explaining like, man, like there's like, and he's doing it in the perfect way. Just like, there's like actual parts of America, like where black people, they just know they can't go. Like you just can't go. Like you can try, you can go there, but it's like, it's not going to be great for you. It's going to be really fucking weird.
I feel really bad for those areas because they're missing out on such amazing shit. Just think if you're a racist, dude, like what are your forms of entertainment that you're willing to put up with? NASCAR, Fox News, country music, like dark metal. I mean, like you're missing out on so much amazing shit.
Yeah, so like the great misconception, or like what basically what's happening, I think, with that word in particular is it's like by uttering.
We're talking the N word. Is that what you're talking about, or any word in general?
Yeah, I think that's like one of the great evil ones right now.
Right now, it's fair, yeah.
But like, if you fucking say that word, you allow, even if it comes from like just a sense of rebelliousness, like don't use your cell phone in this place. Fuck you, I'm using my phone. Even if it just comes from purely something that has nothing to do with any kind of sense of like.
The F word is a religious word.
Fuck?
Yeah, it's a religious word. It was made by the Pope.
You mean fuck?
Fuck is a religious word. It's fornication under church knowledge. It was basically nobody was having kids, and the Pope was like, okay, we got to start cranking more Catholics out. Let's go.
Start fucking.
Yeah.
So that word started off good.
That started out good, and then it had a hard C on it, I think.
Yeah.
And people like, no, too hard of a C. We don't need to hear that, dude.
But then when you look at like the alternative words, like intercourse, it's such a like dry, like scientific word. Like it's such a sad word.
The word I don't understand why people, and women have a word. It's the C word. And I don't understand.
I don't think they care anymore.
Oh, dude, go in the middle of a show and drop that and see how the rest of it go. Yeah, dude.
Cunt.
See how it goes, dude. And it's just a word they've been trained not to like. I personally think the word they should never want to hear is wench. Because wench, through time, is like cunt set on fire. It's like a million cunts. It takes a million cunts to make one wench. I don't know if you've ever seen like the town wench. Everybody was fucking the town wench. The wench was fucking everybody else.
This is ridiculous. Wench sounds like sweet. Like it's a sweet thing to say to someone. Like, come here.
Minch sounds like a fucking, he's a real minch. Sounds like a bad word. It's not. But wench was like a bad word. Like you were the town wench. You know, it's like not good.
You know what's so funny to me? That the reason like all this shit is like frustrating is because it feels like people are missing that a word is like the material around an either gunpowder or like rose petals.
Yes.
It's like so like the energy behind the word is what hurts. And you know, so if like someone's sitting in front of me and hates my guts and calls me brother, hello, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like they want to kill me.
Right.
That word brother compared to
Intention.
someone who loves me. Brother. It's like, and I can feel it. I'll feel the difference.
The energy.
So the energy, and so I think one of the problems, though I do understand not wanting to align yourself with an entire legion of idiots out there who fucking hate people based on, as Terrence McKenna put it, their photon reflectivity of their fucking skin. Like it feels like what sometimes can get lost is that we forget that it's this energy inside of us that gets wrapped, that is enclosed in our language and our semantic choices. And that is why you get around somebody and they can order a coffee and it sounds like they just ordered a fucking nuclear strike. And they could do it in the most calm way too. Like, you know, I think of it as, lately I've been thinking about the fucking John Wayne Gacy effect. Like, you know, like people were going and hanging out with John Wayne Gacy when he had bodies buried in his fucking...
Just hanging out with him.
Yeah. Think about that. Like, you know, like imagine like right now we're doing this podcast, but every once in a while you're catching a smell of just decay, rot, a thing that your whole body has been trained to be aware of because it means you might be in danger.
Yes.
So it's like a specific smell, the smell of death.
I'll never forget that smell.
You've smelled it.
Yeah, right when I moved to LA the first week, back when Hollywood Boulevard was even a shittier place than it is now. There was this storefront that was empty. And I remember walking by, I'm like, what is that smell? And I looked in, and there was like this homeless guy looking in there too. And I was like, he's like, what is that? He's like, that's a dead body. And I was like, oh, it fucking is. And then this other guy goes, get out of here. I go, that's a dead body in there, dude. And I don't even know why I didn't call the cops at that point. It was like so weird. I just moved on with my life. There was a dead body there. And
I guess you're thinking, what are they going to do? They're not going to resurrect the guy. It's like, what's left? Like,
but you smell it, dude. You know
describe it.
All the worst garbage ever in one smell. It's just like, it's so strong. It is rot. You smell rot. Yeah. It's built into us to be like terrified of it because that's where disease is. That's where like danger is. And so like what happens, I think, is that people have made a pretty critical psychological error in thinking that all that shit that they haven't worked through inside of them, like they can hide. And they can hide it from people who are also hiding shit or people who are kind of distracted or whatever. But you really can't hide much from people who've done any kind of real training and perception. So a lot of people, no matter what they say, it's very similar to like being at a wonderful dinner party where someone's like, here's a beautiful plate of strawberries and here's some wine and here's some champagne. But underneath, buried in the dirt, is death. Yeah.
And it's like no matter before you so you have to deal with that thing inside of you. That's like the idea is to like get in there and exhume all that shit and give it a proper burial. And
you know what's interesting, dude? There is that in stand-up comedy too. You know, there are some guys who in comedy who work clean, but off stage they're horrible human beings. And that's almost the same thing. Obviously not murder, but the ability to switch it on, switch it off, public face versus real face, all that stuff, and how that is psychologically taxing on you. It eventually catches up with you because you're not able to do you for real. I find the people, you know, it's like I always say, not all clean comics are assholes, but most asshole comics work clean, okay? And that's just something I've learned over life. I'm not applying that to you and how you see other comedians, but that's something I've learned. The people who come in and we're treating people like shit, at some point they were always working clean and all this stuff. They made business decisions, in my opinion. The guys who are the nicest dudes are the guys who are themselves on stage, like David Tell. Like, what a wonderful guy that is.
Right.
He couldn't be nicer, you know?
Right.
And is just a fucking savage on stage.
Yeah.
Nick DiPaolo is like that. My mom went and saw Nick DiPaolo do stand-up and met him after, says he was the nicest guy. On stage, just a cyclone of comedy, just a wrecker of rooms, you know? And it's interesting. The more you are you, the more the more you've experienced life, and you kind of let shit go, and you don't understand. It's the people that don't take time to expand their minds that get really upset at stuff. Like, if you instantly get mad at hearing a word you don't like, and you don't take time to hear what it is, that says something about you, right? I mean, it says
being offended is usually it's a warning sign. Like, if you're offended at language versus action, like if you're offended,
couldn't agree more.
Then it probably means that you're like stressed out about some other shit. Like usually, like, it's like kind of like you slam your finger in the door, and then someone comes up to you and it's like, "Hey, what's up?" And you're like, "Fuck you," because you're in pain.
Yeah.
And like with people who are in pain, they get angry easier.
Right.
That's what I've noticed is people usually, if someone's quick to get angry, or if I'm quick to get angry, that means I'm hurting. Like it's not like people. So that's kind of gives me a little bit of compassion for those people.
I do have compassion. I think you gotta have compassion. I think also we have to understand something. Like, I always found it interesting, like, how people love prank shows so much. They love prank shows.
Yes.
They love to see people get set up and then made to look stupid. And what they don't realize is, for the most part, these people who are getting set up are very nice people. They're actually in a moment where they're trusting the person they're talking to, that this is a real moment, and at this moment this person is betraying their trust. Yeah. And they are setting them up and almost fucking with them.
To me, those are bad prank shows. Like, the good prank shows are the ones that,
even at the worst, even the nicest prank show, and I'm not saying that these people are scum. I'm just saying this moment, these people are trusting that this is an authentic moment.
Right.
And they are trusting that, oh, you're in trouble, or whatever the prank is at this time. Yeah. That they're stopping to help you, to engage in this, to help you get through whatever problem that you are presenting to them. Punk'd was very much on that. Here we have a situation, Celine Dion. We need help.
Those are lame pranks. The good prank shows are like the Borat pranks, where you construct this character that sort of naturally invokes, like, triggers racists. You know?
Oh, okay, I can understand that.
You know
where
what
you
I'm
go into, you go in. Okay, those pranks, right? If we're talking where you're going in to meet with a politician and you're going to kind of lampoon him, I can understand that.
Or it brings out a person's puffed up, like it brings out a person's puffed up side. The kind of pranks you're talking about, and I know what you're saying, those suck. Those are not even. I don't even know if those count as pranks. Like, some of the pranks I've seen on Punk'd, where it's like, dude, that's not a fucking prank. Like, if you set like a garbage can on fire and someone goes to put out the garbage can and you're like, I've set the fire. Nothing happened here. Yeah. Or like your car's getting towed or someone's being harassed. Yeah. And they go to help the person being harassed. They're like, they weren't even really being harassed. I got you. Those are shit pranks.
Yeah, like when Jackass put the baby on the roof, they drive off, and people think it's a real baby. And it's funny to watch, but at that moment, you're like betraying this person's like trust. And I'm not saying it's the biggest offense in the world.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's what it is. But the reason I bring that up is because I think that gets done on a much bigger level, to get back to conspiracies, but a much bigger level by very dark forces who manipulate this whole group of people. Yeah. Because this whole group of people are very trusting. Yeah. My girlfriend, who I love with all my heart, okay, can't stop watching mainstream news. Yeah. And she has love and intention in her heart.
Yes.
And as somebody who studied like the conspiracies, and I thoroughly enjoy it, I know what's going on in that boob tube. But she trusts that.
Right.
But she doesn't understand the people paying those people have alternative motives, in my opinion, to muck everything up.
Dude, for sure. I mean, we got to keep this shit away from... Like, I've actually thought, like, there needs to be, like, a movement to get Fox News away from grandparents. Like, we got to get this shit away from old people. Because when you think about the number of old people who are sitting alone in their homes, in their apartments. I don't know, like, if you have a grandfather, an aging dad.
Yeah.
But sometimes you call these people. Like, I remember going to visit Mitzi in the later years. And inevitably, she'd be sitting in front of Fox News at night, trembling with Parkinson's. And anytime one of the fucking alerts came up, like, like, these news they use the alert for nothing.
Yeah.
But, like, anything can happen. Anything. They'll just make up a thing that happened. Someone fucking Wolf Blitzer can get an email, and it's like, dun, 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 alert! Ping!
Yeah.
And it's intense. The thing behind the alert is, like, news places use alerts in the way, not all comedians, but some comedians use special. Like, if it's a special, it should be special.
Yeah.
If it's a fucking alert, let me know that this is true. This has got to be a tsunami as an alert, But so anyway, the point is, we're triggering the adrenal glands of these fucking, like, geriatrics.
Yes.
And they're festering in their own, like, stress chemicals, and they're getting sick, and they don't even realize they think they're getting sick because it's old age. No, you're getting sick in the same way those little potato people were getting sick when they stared in the fucking dark crystal.
Yeah.
Remember that? You remember that where their eyes went white and they withered up?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
And it's not even, I don't know, like, if it's like a state conspiracy or it's just that, like, a fucking team of very clever sorcerers figured out a way to hypnotize vulnerable and weak people into thinking that it's the fucking apocalypse.
100%. It's like these very smart people who have a lot of money know how to use propaganda on the masses. And it really is that, man. It really is that. And the problem is, like, and I've talked about this with other people, like, the thing about conspiracy theorists is we're like the new cat lady, right? We're like the crazy people that scare the children. The real truth about them is that they just remember. They don't forget. They keep score. And I feel like, in particular, this town, Hollywood, which is like really had, in my opinion, probably the roughest 3 years of its existence with the election of Trump, and who I'll be honest with you, I haven't liked the president since Jimmy Carter.
Right?
I don't care if it's an R and a D, dude. When you take a look at it, you take out the emotion of it, you really what's going on. There's some war criminal stuff going down, and maybe that's the nature of the seat itself, the position. But it's like, this town, I grew up on thinking this town was for the rebels, the outsiders. If you look at young MTV back in the day, they were the artists, the descendants of Cain, right? The guys who didn't play by the rules, did their own thing, questioned authority, did all that stuff. And then for some reason, it's changed a little bit, And with the Me Too stuff coming out, the blind following of Hillary Clinton, and how nobody can come to grips with that a woman could be evil. And this notion that, to judge a group of people, to judge somebody in a negative way based upon the group they're on is frowned upon in society, as it should be, right? If I go, oh, that's a black guy, he's obviously a crack dealer. That is offensive, right?
Yes.
That is completely wrong. But in my opinion, it is as equally wrong to look at someone in power as good based upon being a woman, or being a black man, or being a Latino, or whatever,
or being a president,
or anybody. Yes, it is really bad to do identity politics with people in power, because these people, just like Jackass with the baby on the car, will manipulate you. They'll manipulate your emotions. And that is completely what was done with Hillary Clinton. And Trump is an asshole too. This is not a Trump rally at all. I'm just saying, like, this town has done a real disservice to what it represents by blindly getting behind somebody and blindly hating somebody based on predetermined characteristics.
Yeah, it seems like it's like a kind of perfect storm of the problem of social media sort of giving people these like rewards for saying pretty obvious non-statements that like somehow seem brave, and then people get a bunch of likes for that, and then they start repeating these non-statements.
It gets addictive, dude.
They get addicted, and then they keep doing it, and then it's like you see like a funny person suddenly getting sucked into like a just essentially like a kind of seizure of need, because they don't really like sometimes you get the feeling that that's pretty much the limit of their social activism, is tweeting pretty things that you and I like have been aware of for a long time, probably, when it comes to like if you've ever taken a healthy dose of LSD and spent any amount of time contemplating an American president, then you know there's something incredibly fishy going on there, and you probably know a lot more than that too, because it helps pull up, it helps unveil a lot of the conditioning or the scales on your eyes get lifted for a second, and you realize something that you actually said earlier in the podcast, which is it's the sometimes the people who are on stage and seem so clean and sweet and family friendly, it's shocking to realize that the moment they get off stage, they're actually like really pissed off. They're angry. They're like sociopaths. They're crazy. And so when we look at like the networks and we see this like parade of apparent health, like here's what healthy people are like, or even like here's what comedy looks like, or here's like look at the fucking host on the TV shows. This is like what a good successful man or woman looks like, and this is what it looks like when you're cool and sweet.
Couldn't agree more.
And so when people are starting to realize, which is for us non-shocking, but for many people out there who've made the assumption that the thing they see on stage is the thing backstage, is that the entire collaboration that led up to some of these creations, whether it's the collaboration to create an American president or the collaboration to create a family-friendly sitcom, when they realize the thing within that collaborative effort, there are fucking sociopaths.
Yeah.
There are pedophiles who are like preying on children, and they've put themselves in positions of power so that they could have access. When they realize that the coven behind the magic is not a coven of white witches who are like Full House or whatever it is, whatever the thing. I don't know like how those people are in Full House. I think a few of them got in trouble, but like the classic thing you hear is like child stars. What happens to them? What happens to a child star when they get older, Sam? Usually
they usually become drug addicts, and they crash and burn their life. We've seen a lot of that, and you know, I'll finish your point. I don't want to.
Well, that's it. Which is so what happens is the real tragedy when it comes to like the old way of doing TV, the network sitcom, is you get these little children in there, who get their childhood sort of like siphoned off of them so that their parents can make money, and the people, quite often the people behind it. Wait, which show was it? Wasn't there like some weird show where the dude was like had a foot fetish, and it was always
Nickelodeon,
right? What show is that?
It was the fat guy from Head of the Class, and he just got kicked out of Nickelodeon because it's all starting to come out. And
they did kick him out.
Oh, he's gone. I'll tell you off thing all the stuff about him, because you know it's alleged, right? It's alleged, and you know we've seen like all the girls.
Oh, it's alleged. I didn't know.
No, I mean, like, dude. I mean, that's what you're supposed to say. So if he hears this, he can't come and sue you, right?
Yeah.
But
guys,
I've been putting my money on it.
We didn't even name a name. There's just some dude at Nickelodeon, and
some fat guy Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it's alleged. But the point is, like, you know, if you watch that show, it's called An Open Secret. Have you seen that shit?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. And that is 100. All that shit is real. And I was talking about it way back in the day, and everyone called me a crazy person. It's 100% real, dude. If you look at like the little girl from Poltergeist who just out of nowhere died, and then there's no story about it, just gone. You look at like Gary Coleman. What was that show? The Facts of Life. What was that? Was that the Different Strokes? I mean, the daughter on that her life was tragedy, dude. Tragedy. And we've seen over and over these kids who were child stars who became giant drug addicts. And later we find out because they were all getting molested. They were getting molested and passed around in these groups of things. And people don't think it could happen. 100% it does.
But this is like, okay, so like Carl Jung said this brilliant thing, which is that the leader of a country but if there is a collective shadow, I don't know if we talked about this on your podcast, but if there's, so the idea is like everybody has a shadow side. Everybody, no matter who you are.
Sure, I have a lot of dark passengers.
But here's where, yeah, right. But in like, I think what Jung said is like the parts of yourself that you're aware are dark. That's not your shadow. Your shadow is something that you aren't even aware. It's like it's like almost it's like unlookable at. It's so dark, and it's like so. But everyone's got one. Everyone's got one. Everyone has a shadow. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of being alive. You're going to have like an antithetical aspect of yourself. It's crazy. So what Jung said is that, I believe it was Jung, that the collective shadow of a society can manifest as their leader. So Adolf Hitler was the collective shadow of the repressed aspect of Germany at that time. And so what happens is the thing that we're desperately trying to not acknowledge or hide, it ends up appearing in front of everyone and controlling them.
So interesting.
It's so cool. So like the thing that you're talking about here, it's non-different, like with TV, with the church, with the Catholic Church, with families, with actors, with it's pretty much runs the gamut. And the problem is that there is a great deal of tension right now between the way people show themselves on stage, whether that stage is their desk, whether the stage is the booth they work at a movie theater, whether that stage is whatever, and the person that they actually are. And that tension is incredibly painful and incredibly dangerous, and it fucking drives people nuts because it bifurcates, a person into a bunch of different entities and it scrambles them up. Anyway, the point is, we're just seeing a reflection right now.
I get that.
Of a deeper problem, which is that people have been taught by corporations and by schools and by parents to pretend to be something, or they'll lose their job.
That's a great point, and it is a great. And I personally believe there's a darker part to this. What you're talking about, there's always that theory that confession in the Catholic Church wasn't done to get it out, but more to use to blackmail people. It's like now the church knows what you're guilty of, and they can give that information to somebody else. They can come around.
Can I stop you there for a second just to jump off that point?
Yeah.
This to me is the most hilarious fucking thing about the iPhone and all phones is that for some reason, we're always like, oh, our phones are being tapped by the government. Oh, our phones are being tapped by this and that. And for some reason, people don't think that like people at Google, they just assume like the people at Google aren't going into your emails.
Yeah.
They assume that the people at Apple aren't like turning your camera on. They assume that the people, now you remember this shit was happening when I think it was the FBI wanted Apple to crack to unlock someone's phone.
San Bernardino, quote unquote shooter. They said who was the quote unquote shooter.
Yeah, and remember how Apple was like,
he wasn't.
We're not going to fucking do that. That's a slippery slope.
Right.
And the attorney for Apple came out and said some veiled threat. Do you remember that? The attorney from Apple came out and said something along the lines of like, what if we started accusing the CIA of assassinating Kennedy? Do you remember that? It was a veiled threat. And the moment they did that, they fucking stopped fucking with Apple.
Yeah.
Because what Apple was saying is like, hey, dumbasses, we have your phones. The president is using an iPhone. We know everything. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
And that's a scary moment when a corporation becomes bigger than a government. Do you think about that? Because I've always thought, and if you got any libertarian listeners, I'm libertarian when it comes social. If you're with a consenting adult, do what you want to do. Business wise, I mean, let's say you want to build a deck here on your new cool place. You got to get 1,000 permits for that. I'm against that. That's unnecessary.
Yeah, sure.
And it's red tape and it's just a money grab. But it's like, if I go to work, I want to know that where I'm going, I'm not going to die. There's a chance I might not die because of unsafe workplaces. That to me is protections, which they smartly called what's the fucking regulations, and everyone goes crazy on regulations, right? But I do believe there's a part of me that believes that the whole libertarian movement is a psyop by very big corporations to get a movement to say less government, because the only people who can stop a giant corporation, and we see it happening all the time in Europe. They kick out Monsanto's. They just kicked out, one country just kicked out George Soros. You see them, the only people who can stop giant corporations are in fact the government. So the best way to make sure that doesn't happen is to get a giant movement going, fuck government.
Dude, I can offer you a counter argument to that.
That's fine. I'm cool with that.
Check out this counter argument. It's pretty cool. You'll like it. It's like, so the counter argument to that is actually regulations are a way to link corporations. So maybe it's the same when we were saying the same thing, actually. The idea is this. It's like, so all these fucking regulations, what it does is it produces a series of like, you know, hoops that somebody's got to jump through to get a license to do this thing or that thing, right? So you've got to do, like, a government inspector comes and looks at your fucking, like, whatever it is, the building, whatever it may be, and we're assuming the government inspector is like authentically like not getting paid off. Many of them are. Yeah. But the government inspector comes and looks at your building. Most people I know in town, they're just like, yeah, you got to bribe them. No question about it. You got to bribe them. Like, they come, you give them some money, and they like pass your fucking shit. Yeah. So that's just the way it is. Like, I've talked to a few different business owners, you know? I mean, who
literally, they're like, just throw them, like,
oh yeah,
they're $100, $200. What's a bribe? I don't know. What is that?
They usually it's like
I've never bribed anybody,
dude. Like, I'll give you an example.
Okay,
this happened a long time ago at the Comedy Store. I don't remember who the fucking guy was. He was a rapper. They were trying to create in right around the Comedy Store something called a business something district, where all the businesses put money in to get their own private security, and like it's like a weird thing that is somehow connected to the city. It's like a business control district or a business something district, and I think it fell apart. But for a little while, if you remember, on Sunset Boulevard, there were dudes riding around on bikes and shit. I think it's called a business improvement district.
Okay,
right? So Mitzi fucking hated that shit. She was like, "What? Fuck that! It's a fucking shakedown," because they wanted money. They wanted money so each business puts in a certain amount of money for the bid, the business improvement district, right? You put in a certain amount of money. Now you've got a dude riding around on a bicycle who's gonna like keep like fucking like drunks off the street, or just give the appearance that this is a safer place than it actually is.
By the way, most security is just an appearance.
Well, yeah, that's all exactly.
You ever been to 7-Eleven? They got that guy who's security guard, and you're like, this dude's getting paid $10. He's not gonna stop anything from anything.
Well, this is the great illusion, is we all think we're safe when we're really not. Like, death rides on everybody's shoulder at any second. You're going to die, and that's the great big secret that nobody wants to admit. But that being said, the business improvement district, this dude, like, as Mitzi wants to fight this fucking thing. She doesn't want to do it. And I remember, like, this dude comes by. I think he was from the city. Maybe from the business improvement. He comes by. I'm supposed to walk through the Comedy Store with him. We go behind the Comedy Store, standing in the alley outside the green room and the main room. And the guy looks at me. He's like, you know, man, we could have this fucking building torn down. It was not even like not even a veiled threat. It was just like, hey, dumbass, if we wanted to, we could like really fuck your life up if you don't agree to this thing, which is really just a way we're going to siphon some money away from the businesses. And that's is that a bribe? I don't know. It's kind of a bribe, isn't it? Saying, hey, do you want to be cool with the city?
Yeah.
The problem is I can't remember if the guy worked for the city or not, but so that's not really a bribe in the sense that it's a business improvement district. But it's a weird way of being like, hey, guys, there's going to be an extra little tax we've come up with, and if you don't pay it, we're going to make trouble for you.
Right.
And is that a bribe? Or is it like, no, we just want to improve, but, we'll make... So, and another way to put it is like...
that's a bribe.
Right. So we have this way of like making bribes not seem like bribes anymore. So anyway, the whole point is when we come to the concept of regulation, which is certainly in some, we need that shit. If you look at places where there isn't regulation, that's when the fucking tent collapses, the concert. And
that's my whole point.
But where it gets weird and where the libertarians are like pointing out something that's certainly correct, more the anarchists than the libertarians, I think, even though the two are like one leads to the other sometimes. But the idea is that actually what's happening is that, you know, when we look at like the Soviet Union, and it's like the state is running everything. The state is running the fucking grocery stores. The state is running everything. And it's like a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And in the West, we're like, the state isn't doing that at all. The state's not running anything at all, except the state has come up with the way that you're supposed to train employees. The state has come up with the forms you're supposed to fill out to make a business happen. The state has come up with all these regulations. And the people who are working in the corporate offices of many of these massive conglomerates used to be working in the government.
Yeah.
Government workers go to the banks. People who work for the banks go to the government.
All the time.
So there's now this foggy, weird, like membrane through which government workers become private workers who work for massive corporations, and people who work in massive corporations become government workers. And now we see that there's actually a deep connection between these two things. And I think libertarians and anarchists are pointing out, fuck that, man. We don't want state-run goddamn businesses. We want there to be a separation.
I completely agree with that. 100%. But what I am talking about is this, like when we get rid of regulations, there need ones. There inevitably is a crash, and it's done on purpose because these like Goldman Sachs, right? They literally, through law, they were allowed to create a profile, which they put all these bad real estate investments in, and they did it on purpose. Then they went to their investors and told them, invest in this profile, knowing it was going to crash. And what they do, they went and they got insurance on that, meaning if it crashes, they get money.
Yeah.
And it crashed, and they made so much money on it. That, to me, is a major problem. So I don't know where the fine line is between necessary and abusive. You know, when you say that the company, when the city comes to the Comedy Store and goes, either pay us this improvement thing or we're going to shut down your business, that to me is abuse. The thought that a company can tell its investors knowingly to invest poorly in this, and it crashes, causing such a giant crash that the U.S. government has to throw $1 trillion in to bailouts, and that these corporations budget this buyout into their budgets. That to me is chaos. I don't have an answer.
Well, what you're doing there, though, is you're creating a separation between the corporation and the state. Like, so the idea is like that somehow the state has been victimized or manipulated by the corporation as though they weren't working in cahoots. But really, when you look at it, what you start finding out is through. I mean, look at what's happening.
Oh, I see what you're saying there. I get that. So you're right.
So like here we have really what's happening is the state has teamed up with corporations to siphon money from people through taxes. So really it's the government and the corporations are the same thing, but they've come up with a clever ways that they could siphon money from the people. That's what it is.
I get what you're saying.
So there's no, like, if there's a separation between the two, then we could see, and that is kind of the narrative that gets thrown around is like, oh no, the poor government, the poor United States government is being manipulated by the banks, as though the banks were separate from the fucking government. Please.
Interesting.
Look at like...
And isn't that fascism when the government and corporations merge? Is that what considered fascism is?
Corporatocracy, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what you call it. I don't really know. I don't know the particular name for it, but to me it seems...
But like that was the big thing about Obama's Obamacare.
It's the coalescing of power.
Okay.
So it's kind of like power will coalesce.
Point Duncan Trussell. You've changed my mind.
Thank you. Well,
I have no problem
read
with that.
David Graeber's The Utopia of Rules. It's a fantastic book that like breaks all this shit down. It talks about like the intentionality to like basically there's like this idea of credentials. So credentialization. So it's kind of like there's all these bullshit credentials. So here's how it works. I want to get credentialed to practice psychology. So to get credentialed to practice psychology, I have to go to school. Very expensive. So to go to school for most people, that means I have to what? I have to get in debt to the banks to go to school to get credentialed.
Yeah.
So essentially it's a bribe because the thing that the training that I'm getting, do we really need it? How much of it do we really need? Do we need 4 years of it? Could it be done in 5 months? Do we need 4 years? But really it's more than 4 years. It's more like 8 years. So I've got to go get this credential for 8 years.
So
I get 8 years into debt. So really at that point, what is happening is I'm saying to the banks, if you will give me the credential so that I can practice this thing or that thing, then I will tithe to you a percentage of my yearly income.
Oh my God, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book?
It's called The Utopia of Rules.
I'm gonna read
by
that.
David Graeber. It's really, really great.
That's so interesting.
It's really good, and so what you're seeing there, like, okay, so right now everyone's like, shitting bricks over Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, who is meeting with like AT&T, I believe, and other governments, and saying, I will give you access to the president for $500,000, for $1 million, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And everybody's like, what the fuck is this
I
shit?
agree. Yeah, crazy, right?
Crazy, right? But really what that is it's just Trump doing what presidents have always done, but doing it in a sloppy fucking way.
Yes.
That's the gift of Trump.
Yes.
The gift of Trump is like where he's showing us, wait, this is exactly what presidents have always done.
Yeah.
They've just been a little more subtle with their ways of like making that fucking money flow into the private accounts. They're just a little more, Trump is just like kind of like clumsy. So like he's like, and I think, when people talk about the deep state and people being upset with him, they're not upset with him because he seems to be like has a short fuse. They're upset with him because he's giving away all their tricks. He's like a bad magician at the Magic Castle who's coming out and he's showing all this fucking shit that the other great magicians, everyone's like, wait, that's a trick? I know how to do that now. That, I think, is why people are so upset with him. They're like, dude, we figured out a way to trick people into thinking you're God. You're God, and you're fucking giving it all away.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the problem with Trump,
That's great,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
That is so true. And that is, I've always said, like, the difference between Obama and the difference between Trump is like, it's like your significant other is cheating on you. Do you want to know about it or don't you want to know about it? If you want to know about it, that's Trump. If you don't want to know about it, that's Obama.
There you go. That's a great way to put it. It's just the secret is right out there on the table. It's really not that much of a secret. It's like, but come on, friends. Really, 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 you think American politicians are not being paid off to make decisions? You think they're making decisions based on their constituency?
Right.
Come on. Really? You really think that? Some of them maybe, but all of them, I don't know. It's like doping in baseball, isn't it? It's like if one of them starts getting paid off, all of them kind of have to start getting paid off, or they don't have the money to run their fucking election campaigns. So it's like, to me, that's the what we're seeing, and that's one of the great gifts of Trump, is it's like, let's stop fucking pretending that the state is some kind of golden shining god. This is not. It's no. So it's North Korea. Everyone's like, my God, they really thought that Kim Jong-un is a god? Bah, those savages. How could they think that? Can you imagine that an American president told a lie? Yeah. It's no different. It's like it's a fucking human.
Or you like to get peed on, or you like to have weird sex. And
can you imagine?
He grabs somebody by the pussy.
Can you imagine?
The thought of this town getting so upset about grab her by the pussy. I don't get it. I don't know. Is it that they were trying to show the powers that be that they're going to play ball by going absolutely nuts over grab her by the pussy? Well, Sam, that's offensive. Yeah, it is offensive. But we got to look at where the playing field in which this is happening.
When people get outraged by that and
when you look at Clintons, they've been on a fucking Lolita Express 22 times.
Right. Well, but again, it's like that. The assumption here is that people, number one, the assumption is that what you're seeing on social media is all coming from actual humans and not, bots or
which goes back to our manipulation thing.
Yeah. So you do run into like
astroturfing. They call it.
So who knows? I mean, what I would like is, I think what is a pretty normal, nice thing to want is for our leader to be not perfect, but for our leader to be an example of what we can do as a country. Like, we want our leader to be like, dude, look at us. That's us. That's not a reflection of our shadow. That's a reflection of all of us. And some of it's stupid and some of it's annoying, but really, man, that's a cool motherfucker. Like, I like that person for real.
Right.
Maybe he's not telling the truth or she's not telling the truth all the time. That's a cool motherfucker. That's what like what you were saying. Most of these people who are being pranked, they're really nice.
Yeah.
And most Americans, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And really what they want is a president who's like their kids can look at and be like, that's a cool guy. They don't really care that much, but you want your kid to look at the president and be like, man, that's a wonderful human. Maybe not perfect, but he's pretty great.
Right.
And so when like Trump, all this shit comes out about this dude being this fucking like pig and being this fucking thing that many of the people who are upset about it, if they really scan back in their history, maybe they've done some shit they're not so proud of. But it's like, God damn it, man. You fucking please, if you're gonna con me, please don't let me know I'm being conned.
Yeah.
Because then I can't sleep as well at night.
Right.
And this
and that's what scares people, especially in the conspiracy world, man. They get very scared. They don't hate you. Like, because people get angry with me. They get angry. I mean, it's gotten weird at the store a couple times. People can say passive aggressive stuff to me very much that I have to let it go.
Yeah. Because
if I go back, then I'm the aggressor and I'm the asshole. So I just have to let it roll. And they're not assholes. I just know that deep down inside they're scared they're getting lied to, and they don't, because they know me. They know me. They met with me. They've interacted 1,000 times. You know, the next guy I fuck over is the first guy I fuck over. You know, I purposely operate like that.
Yeah.
That I try not, you know, they know me. They don't know these people, but they trust these people.
Sure.
And they've been getting told this stuff by these people for a very long time. And I come in with something different and they get scared that they are getting lied to.
Well, you just have to, you're right. And you're triggering something that's like, for a lot of people, the idea, like here's like, I don't know if you've ever been conned before. Have you ever been conned?
No, I've had moments where I'm like, I think I'm getting catfished. You know, when you had a conversation with someone on the internet, you're like, this is too good to be true. You know, I think I gotta get out of this thing. So,
well, have you ever seen that terrifying movie? There's two versions of it. There's a remake of it, and there's the original. It's called Funny Games. You ever seen that?
No, I have not.
So this is like a really disturbing movie, and the movie starts off with these people at a vacation home. There's a knock at the door, and these two dudes are at the door. They say they're from the house down the street. They need some eggs, right? Like, can we borrow some eggs? You know, and they're like kind of weird, but it's like, oh yeah, sure. And they bring them some eggs, right? And the guys like drop the eggs, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're so sorry. I'm so sorry. Do you have any more?" And the woman goes and gets some more eggs and brings it to them, and they drop the eggs again. What the fuck is happening? Do they mean to drop the fucking eggs?
Oh, this is creeping me out.
So then, like, what happens is like they kind of start acquiescing to what obviously is not right. And another, if you really want to see the perfect example of it, Sam. By the way, we're at 4:04. You got to be somewhere.
Whatever.
Traffic.
You need. Whatever you need.
Perfect example of it.
I just need you to talk about one thing before we go.
Sure.
Magic schools.
Oh yeah, mysteries. We'll get to that.
Mystery schools.
This actually kind of connects.
Okay.
So like, if you want the perfect example of this, it's fucking Rosemary's Baby. When was the last time you saw Rosemary's Baby?
Forever.
Okay, you need to watch it again, because if you look at Rosemary's Baby, spoiler alert, Rosemary becomes the mother of the Antichrist. Rosemary is the mother of the Antichrist. And her husband move into a building where they are gradually manipulated by satanic witches. She gets raped by the devil, and ends up giving birth to the Antichrist. Now, if you look at Rosemary in particular, who it's a really interesting type of protagonist, and you realize, like, in many ways, she committed like a really kind of atrocious sin, which is that she kept acquiescing. Instead of sticking up for herself, it's like she was people pleasing. She wanted to believe these people were okay when she knew they weren't. And she kept saying yes, 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 yes,
that's
yes,
so
yes.
interesting.
And then she ends up rocking the fucking cradle of Satan. So I think that the film in a lot of ways is a commentary on people pretending to be victims when in fact they are actually like they've actually opened the door to vampires, to demons.
They welcome the vampires in.
Yes, right. So I think like that is
so interesting.
Yeah, and that's for a lot of people. They want to imagine that the state of things, the condition of things, has been imposed upon them, and that they haven't, in a lot of different ways, acquiesced to this. And so anyway, the point is, it's easier to be hanging around people and playing the game of pretending they're not fucking using you than to confront them. Because if you confront them, now you've got to fight.
Yeah.
You know, now the gig's up. Now you got to fight. You have to wake up. You have to fight, and it fucking sucks. And this happens in families where there's abuse.
Yeah.
Which is, this abuse has been going on and on and on, and everyone fucking knows it. But they don't want to destroy the fucking family, and so they stay quiet. They would rather
Great example, Penn State, same thing.
Exactly.
They don't want to ruin the program. Michigan State, same thing.
Exactly.
Catholic Church, same thing.
And so we have this like for example with Obama, there's just some facts out there. And one of the facts is that Obama, under his administration, they deported, now this might have changed, I don't know if Trump's caught up with him yet, but under Obama, they deported more people than all American presidents combined. All American presidents combined. You can look this up. This is not a radical, far-right, alt-right fact. This is
correct.
True.
It's correct.
You can look it up. I remember like getting in online. Somebody came at me so hard and was attacking me. I'm like, hey, look, I just want to show you this fact. This is a fact. And they had to like gradually, what she said, which is really cool. She's like, you know what? I'm just scared. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's what it is. I don't remember exactly how the interaction went. It was something like that. But my point is that the difference between Obama and Trump is Obama made it seem like he was this kind of sophisticated sweetie. And I guarantee he is on certain levels. But also, he had a lot of people deported. He ordered a lot of fucking violence to happen in the world. He was part of this thing and that thing where many people who had done nothing wrong were killed for in the name of what?
Yeah.
You know? And so this is true.
Just know that the Nobel Peace Prize winning president is the first president in the history of the United States to, from day one to his last day, was in war. He's the only president to ever be in war every day of his administration.
But you know, again, not. I mean, I'm not defending her.
I get that.
I've always called Obama. What people get upset with is I compare Obama or like I like to draw the Manson. Like everyone's upset with Charles Manson, but it's like, wait, he didn't do anything. He just ordered people to kill people, but he was in jail forever. But that's what every American president does. They like. They're these.
I get that.
They're these charismatic leaders that convince people to murder for them. And then the people that they've convinced to murder for them are some of the great, like very sweet, wonderful people who just want to help. They actually use this terrible trick. It's a really terrible, terrible trick, which is like humans, we want to build shit together. We like to build stuff together.
I got that.
We love it. We love, and we love to serve each other. Like humans like to give things to each other. We love to help. Humans, Americans, man, we fucking love to help.
Yes.
War there's no better place for you to help your friends. There's no better place
tribe
to build shit with your tribe and to save lives. And you can do it under the illusion these days that what you're doing is for some just cause. And the whole fucking thing's falling apart now as we look at Iraq. We look at like all these things that happen and we think, what was that for? Why did that happen?
Yes.
We took our best people and we put them into a situation of an absurd situation. And now they come back here with PTSD. They come back here and they kill themselves because they're dealing with this kind of cognitive dissonance that comes from a sense of like, man, I wanted to help.
Right.
I wanted to fucking help.
I concur.
I wanted to help. I came there because I wanted to fucking help. I joined the military. I wanted to fucking help. I saw the buildings on fire. I wanted to fucking help. I wanted to help. I didn't want that to happen. I love this country. I wanted to help. These are good people, you know, and they got sucked into a thing. Oh, it's so sad.
It is sad. It's completely sad. And it's like, people don't want to come to grips with a lot of that stuff. People don't like to talk about the 9/11s and all that stuff because it scares them. The notion that somebody who is on the, there's good evidence that Hitler was a Rothschild. There's a lot of evidence to that.
Well, instead of saying there's good evidence, I think the way to go, I don't know if you're right or wrong, is to point to what is true. Bare aspirin. Just start fucking there.
Yeah.
You know about bare aspirin?
Yeah, of
Fuck,
course.
were they making Cyclone B?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They if you look at so if you start looking at the way that many corporations, because everyone's like, well, the Nazis, what do you think those fucking Nazis, what happened to them?
Yeah.
Where do you think they went? You think they all just vanished? They snowflakes?
They entered an expansion draft.
They
got drafted by England, Russia, and the United States. And the rest of them, the ones that didn't get drafted, either went down to Argentina or they were thrown on trial. You know?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the number of Nazis that ended up being that were war criminals and got hung versus the number of Nazis that were, when you look at Hitler giving that speech and everyone's scattered out there, it looks like it's like they based the fucking Star Wars scenes in Star Wars off of that, where it's this infinite display of these people. What do you think happened to them?
Yeah.
These were skilled people. These were trained people. These were very deeply indoctrinated, brainwashed people. Where do you think they went? You think they just vanished? You think they just disappeared? Well, come on. Where do they go? What happened to them? They evolved, many of them. They figured out a way to do what they were doing in a way that didn't seem so fucking overt. That shit's not going to work. That form of imperialism, that doesn't work anymore. That's over now. It's gone. It's not going to work. So we have to, if the impulse is to conquer, we're going to have to convert that conquering impulse into a way that's palatable to the majority of people.
Yep.
To subjugate. Well, we can't subjugate in the way that's advised by the Prince these days. So by Machiavelli's book, The Prince, we have to figure out another way to subjugate. We have to figure out another way to do it, And so to me, the comfort is this. What's happening is not different. It's just concealed now.
Yes.
That's all. It's an evolution of imperialism. And in a lot of ways, there's something about that that's comforting in a lot of ways. It just depends on the way you want to look at it.
Right.
Because here's the truth. We are living in a time where more people have access to electricity than ever before. We're living in a time where literacy rates are higher than they've ever been before. We're living in a time where infant mortality rates are lower than they've ever been before. We're living in a time of... compared to other times in human history, of great prosperity. And we're living in a time where there's a lot of beauty that's happening.
Of course.
But because of that, the darkness, when it appears, it is...
freaks everybody out.
Way louder.
Yeah.
Way more intense.
Yes.
Way more intense. And I think there's something beautiful in that because it means that things are getting better. Truly, things are getting better. The fact that now we're upset because one of our leaders said, grab him by the fucking pussy.
Yeah.
When you look back in the history of leaders.
Oh, my God.
They're lopping fucking heads off of there. They're just they're fucking like Vlad the Impaler. He's fucking putting people on goddamn spikes in front of his fucking castle.
Yeah.
So I think there's something beautiful that the immune system of society is become activated just by a kind of creepy ass fucking cunty, brutish, sexual, deviant president. I think there's something in it that's quite hopeful. It's just we don't want to act. And how do we act? And what is the way to make things, to rip the veil off of things and make things better?
I think the fact that Stormy Daniels just got the key to West Hollywood yesterday and isn't at the fucking bottom of a river has shown we've grown a little bit.
That is it. And as long as we keep our eyes on that,
yeah.
instead of getting so terrified by realizing no, these are the machinations of power. Power coalesces, power manipulates, power seduces, power subjugates, power doesn't really care about you or doesn't care about hurting. Power just wants to have more power. This is just the way it is. As long as we look at it from that perspective of this isn't some unnatural volcano of Satanism.
Right.
It's just what we're beginning to see is the revelation of how things actually are. And eventually it's going to get to the point where we have to act. And we are acting, many of us. And that brings us to the mystery schools, which is Sam and I were talking about this.
Yeah, you blew my mind. It was so funny because I had you on speakerphone laying in my bed with my girlfriend, and you're like, you don't know what mystery schools are? I go, no. What are mystery schools? You're like, you don't know what mystery schools are. I'm like, no. You're like, you're a conspiracy theorist. I was like laughing. When I got off the phone, my girlfriend's like, dude, you got to act like you know what mystery schools are.
Your girlfriend's awesome.
Yeah.
It's conspiracy theorists talking are so funny because one huge part of being a conspiracy theorist, if that's what you call us, having a conversation, is at one point someone's got to be like, what?
Yeah.
You don't know that?
Yes.
Let me tell you this.
And that's why I do love my podcast now, because I have learned so much in life, and there is so much knowledge out there that the thing is, it's like what I've said, I did Tate Fletcher's podcast a long time ago, and I was always talking about how so many people just take the first exit off the road in their life.
Right.
The first exit off is
crazy.
what they take.
Yeah.
And it leads to this job that never fulfills them.
Right.
When if they maybe would have gone 2 or 3 more exits down, they could have been somewhere very, very exciting. And so the knowledge that is out there, a lot of people just take the low-hanging fruit knowledge, and they don't crawl a couple branches up to some really interesting knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's what my podcast, Tinfoil Hat, has done for me, Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli, is it's really opened my mind to a lot of interesting things that I would never have known unless, we had dug deep and went for it.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't, they don't want to go up the tree, and they don't want to. They like where they're at on the tree, and that's totally okay. I mean, that's kind of like, I think one of the ethical sort of considerations. Like if you want to sort of construct an ethical power structure that isn't really based on subjugation, then or you'd want to in other words, if you kind of recognize that in the world there is just a never-ending BDSM party happening that isn't based on consent. You sort of look out at the world, you look at the natural world, you look like when a fucking beetle eats an ant or whatever, when a beetle sprays acid on an ant before it eats it, it's not being like, hey, do you mind if I spray acid on you and make you a part of me?
Yeah.
It just does it. It just takes it. You look at this great video popped up on Reddit of just these birds eating some corpse, which is just, if you look at the natural world, I think the birds are eating a bird corpse. So all these birds are sitting chowing down on some dead bird, basically like a scene from The Walking Dead. They're just like, we're eating bird, we're eating our friend, we're eating Jerry. And then an eagle just comes walking up, doesn't even threaten them. And they're just like, all right, lunch is over. And the eagle just starts eating the dead bird. So you look at the natural world and you see that. Or another way to put it is there's rock slides, avalanches. There are things that happen just absolute natural, people get hit by lightning. Just accidents happen. You look at that, okay, well, Jesus Christ, there's when you look at that, that doesn't seem really fair. And then you look at plants, kudzu will just wrap around another fucking tree and kill it. And you look at that and you're like, well, that doesn't really seem fair. And then you're kind of like, oh, I guess, but with humans, all that, even though we do seem to be the end product of an evolutionary process, with us, that stops.
Yes.
With us, we're not really like that. So,
right.
But with us, it is like that. It's just the way we do it is more nuanced. The way we do it is more camouflaged and clever. And so if you wanted to create a way to sort of disengage from a lot of guilt for being a subjugator, then what you would want to do is produce an equal playing field, which is hey, if you guys want to hang out down at that part of the tree, you're welcome to hang out down there. But if you're hanging out in that part of the tree, you're going to be working for us up here in the upper parts of the tree in different ways.
Yes.
But we're up here, we're leaving the symbols and the signals, and we're leaving it everywhere right in front of you. It's right there in front of you. It's right there. All you got to do is just don't take that exit. Or if you took the exit, go back on the highway.
Yeah.
And just do it. And if you do that, we're going to help you even. That's the other part of it is we will help you. Once you start, once you're all right, I'm going for it.
So interesting.
We're going to help. So anyway, here's the concept.
I love that.
The mystery schools. To understand mystery schools, start with regular schools. So if you look at the school system, we've got high schools and college and junior high schools, right? And
right.
So you go to high school and you do good enough, if you do well enough in high school and you have a good GPA or you demonstrate this
Did you
thing,
go to private school real quick?
No, I did not.
Regular school.
You get a good GPA or whatever, you demonstrate that you're this thing or that thing, you work super hard, maybe you're great at sports, whatever it is, then suddenly you no longer have to get in debt to the banks to go to another school. Actually, the other school will like recruit you. Schools will like try to get you to go to their school, right?
Right.
So now you go to university, the Ivy League schools as they're called, and it's like getting into them is really, really difficult. But once you get into those Ivy League schools, what fucking happens? You get in the Ivy League schools, you join the Skull and Bones,
right.
You become part of this fraternity or that fraternity, and then once you join those groups, then suddenly you begin to like meet
you have access
the children of some very, very powerful people.
Yes.
But you're going to become the powerful people because you're meeting their children, you become friends with them. And then in that process of grooming you and teaching you and giving you information that isn't accessible to people who don't want to go into debt to the banks or can't get in there, you gain a kind of power.
Yes.
You start learning all this stuff, and then from learning that stuff, then you get into politics, and then suddenly the next thing you know, you're the president, you're a senator, you're running things, and then everyone's shitting bricks because they're like, he was a member of the Skull and Bones!
Yeah, right.
So really what you're seeing there is what some people say is a reflection of a completely different type of school system that exists outside of the scope of popular culture.
Okay.
So in the same way that there are universities like Harvard or Yale or whatever, there's also other universities.
Within those universities?
No. There's other universities that aren't even like
universities.
Yeah. And so this is the Freemasons. This is when I was interviewing Sean Stone. He's talking about how he's a Freemason, and then but once you become a Freemason and you get through a certain number of degrees, you actually can get tapped or invited into other fucking schools altogether that people don't even know about. Like if you look at the Freemasons, or you look at you look at that's actually just a kind of like an inflow point.
Yes.
It's kind of like it's like a tentacle. I think I've told you this before. I love it so much that Douglas Adams wrote that mice are actually the end of the tentacles of interdimensional creatures who come into this dimension to study scientists, right? Like, because the scientists are always working with mice, but mice are like actually like studying the scientists. But anyway, that's a dumb joke.
That's so funny.
So in the same way, like the Masonic temples are the protrusion of the end of a tentacle that's connecting to a capillary system, I guess you could say, a very powerful force that's designed to allow people who are interested in learning climbing up the tree to have a chance. And then once you get in there and you demonstrate some kind of, I don't know the way to put it. When you demonstrate a certain type of intention, then from that demonstration, you get invited into deeper and deeper and deeper parts of the temple, so to speak.
So it's like these are universities. Mystery schools are like universities that aren't real universities. They're kind of just like, oh, I go to this Mason lodge and I join the Masons and I slowly learn through that.
These are universities that universities were based on. They're as real as it gets. It's just the universities tried to like become like mirrors of the thing that existed for much longer than the universities. So no, the mystery.
Is there a Mason university?
No, I think what Sean Stone was saying is like by becoming a Freemason, you get inducted into a society where there are secrets, and then
you learn these secrets.
Yeah, and once you start learning those secrets, you're being tested, and they're testing you to see like, well, do you have a big fucking mouth? And if you have a big fucking mouth, then they're like, all right, well, we're going to let you stay at this level, even though you might think you're progressing. They're just like, we're going to keep you at this level because you're going to disseminate the wrong types of information that people aren't ready for.
So interesting.
Yeah, but also, that being said, if maybe they recognize that you have a good intent, then they're like, okay, we're going to let you catch on to certain things and say it publicly, but really, you think you're the one saying the thing publicly. Actually, we're just ready to get this information out in the world because we think that people are ready to level up, or
so interesting.
We want to send an invitation out, which is like, hey, listen, come, we're there, don't worry, it's cool, you're not crazy. We've been around for a lot longer than the United States government, we've been around a lot longer than this thing or that thing. And when you're ready, we're here for you. Don't worry, it's okay. You're just as safe as that bug. You're just as safe as that fucking bird. You're just as safe as any other thing in the natural world, which is to say you're not fucking safe at all.
Yeah.
But that's okay because that's the way things go. And then
the illusion of security.
Yeah. And it's like, look, these people over here, they don't see shit.
Yeah.
They don't see shit. They're walking around with their hands in their pocket or their fucking eyes on their phone or their eyes on the prize. They got their eyes on the prize.
Right.
They want to make some money.
So
they want to make some money. That's okay. Let them go make their money. You know, but if you realize, like, wait a minute, I think that's a fucking that's just a cat toy. All those green bills. That's just that fuzzy little pink thing bobbing around. Once you start realizing that, you're like, wait a minute, I don't think I'm going to look at that anymore. I don't think I'm going to look at the alerts on Fox News anymore. I think I'm going to go start looking in different places.
Yeah.
That's where you meet them.
I love that. I love meeting people in different places. I love hearing about it. That's a big thing in my podcast is I just don't judge people. Like some people who listen get really angry because I don't challenge people on stuff. But that's not really what I'm about. I'm more about, okay, I have you on. Let's assume what you're saying is real. Tell me about what you've learned.
Yeah.
And then either you like it and you keep it with you or you go, that's crazy. And you throw it out and you move on. You know what I'm saying?
Damn right.
And I enjoy that, dude.
Well, that's why you got such a great fucking podcast, man. It's like, come on. Yeah, no, duh. You could like attack somebody because they said this thing. Like, really, you're going to like get into a fucking like political argument or like some kind of argument with somebody who like says they saw Bigfoot. It's like, let them tell you their fucking Bigfoot story. Like, what is it? Like, what happened? Who are you?
Yeah.
And you never know because within that space that you create, some real truth can come out.
For sure. We had this 85-year-old man who's been on Ancient Aliens talking about Anunnaki. And I'm like... And then, like, the threads are like, dude, why do you... I'm like, dude, that's not the show. The show isn't challenging you. There are shows that are like that. This is not that show. This is like, I get conspiracy theorists who tend to be like street dogs, beaten down constantly because they... Like, look at Kanye West. Whatever you want to say about that guy, he literally said, we should give Trump a chance. We need to stop with the diversity. And he got pounded on. And that happens on smaller levels all the time. With people who see it a little different. So I like to take those people, interview them, and go, what are you saying? I'm not here to beat them down like they are everywhere. I want to hear what they have to say and let the listener glean what they want off it.
I think that's because I think it's the job of someone doing the kind of show that you're doing is not to suddenly function as the discriminatory ability in the listener's mind. It's their job to listen to it and be like, I don't think that's real.
Yeah.
Because you're letting someone say something doesn't necessarily mean you believe it.
Right.
It's just like you're letting them sing their song.
Yeah.
It's like, let them sing their song. And then if you don't believe it, you do the research. You check it out. Was that real? Is Hitler a fucking Rothschild? I don't fucking know. I'll look it up though. I'll see what the data is and like whether that even impacts my life or not. Probably not. In the sense that like I'm pretty convinced that like in the same way that we're looking at like, you know, Kim Jong-un, who's like seems to, and I think he really does want to like not be I think the kid wants
isolated.
I think that guy wants to party. I think Kim Jong-un wants to fucking go have some fun. He's stuck with all these old goddamn military cunts. Yeah. He's like trapped in some stupid predicament.
He probably wants to date a couple hot black chicks.
He's like fucking, and I'm not saying like, no, you don't understand. He's running the cabs, killing the dad. Yeah, sure he is. I know he is. He's fucking, I'm sure like the son of a bitch feels terrible or doesn't feel terrible, whatever. But I guarantee that compared to his dad, he's a few shades lighter in the sense of like being like kinder, a few shades more compassionate.
Yeah.
He has access to the internet. He goes on Reddit.
Yeah.
He watches fucking, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But the guy's surrounded by some crusties probably, right?
I totally agree.
And if you look at his predicament and the predicament of the American people or the people who are in the government right now who want things to get better, they're surrounded by crusties too.
Neocons, neoliberals.
Right. And so it's like we're looking at a real kind of like interesting shit.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Dude.
And I think it's really quite beautiful. I think what's happening is like I think it's beautiful. And I think that there's a lot of forces at play here that have benevolent intentions and are just figuring out a way to like make things unfold without there being a global conflagration.
I think it's interesting.
Meanwhile, someone's going to play this shit after like World War III breaks out. You idiots, listen! You were totally wrong. Now does everything seem okay?
That actually happened to me. We recorded an episode. wait a week to put it out, and the information had changed a little bit, so I had to put out a disclaimer before it to just let people know. It's like, this guy was nice enough to come down and do the show, so I want to put out his episode, and I, because I appreciate what his time and effort.
Yeah.
And then it changed again, so it was just like, okay, then it kind of worked out.
It's a process where no matter what you want to think about life, you must admit it's a process. We're in a process. Everyone that you see is in process. When you see a person who's an asshole, don't think that person's permanently an asshole. Think that person is in the part of the process where they're still a fucking asshole. And just know that most people, they're growing, they're changing in a positive way. They're just in a process right now. And that's important to realize. You're not looking at the sum total of a being. You're looking at a frame of their existence, I think.
And we do that a lot with, I totally agree, dude.
Tripoli, I love chatting with you, man.
Our talks
Thank you
are
for coming
epic,
back on the
dude.
show.
Can I don't know when this is going to come out.
I'm going to put it up on the Patreon right now. And when do you need it out?
Well, June 1st, I have a big show.
Okay, so we'll just put this out right away.
Okay,
so
June
plug
1st.
The show.
I'm doing, I've been very blessed at Live Nation and All Things Comedy are presenting Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night, Comedy and Conspiracy Night. We're going to be at the Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco.
Cool.
And then we're going to be at Punchline in Sacramento. It's myself, Eddie Bravo, Off the Grid Ryan, who says Hare Krishna to you. He says,
Hare Krishna.
And then my good friend Trez Mala from Vegas. We're going to be doing basically an hour of stand-up, and then we're going to be doing a Q&A with the crowd. So Cobb's is a big one. If the shows go well, we're going to go tour. They're going to put us on tour. So I'm super stoked. The fact that a giant corporation like Live Nation is giving something like Tinfoil Hat, and people really got mad at me when I said tinfoil hat. Well, why would you call it that? It's like the same NWA. You're like taking it all back. I Googled the other day, like tinfoil hat, want to see where I am. I'm number 5 when you put in tinfoil hat. My goal is to get that at the top, to take back the craziness of that label. So it's a big tour. June 1st, Cobb's in San Francisco. June 2nd in Sacramento.
Friends, go support this beautiful person. It's so fun. It's such a wonderful thing to get out there in the world. Also, a brilliantly funny comedian. So head out there, especially if you're in a mystery school. Let's recruit the son of a gun.
I love that. I love that.
Cool. Thank you, Sam.
You're the best.
You're the best. Thanks for listening, everybody. That was Sam Tripoli. Go see the Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night over at Cobb's and the Punchline in Sacramento, Cobb's in San Francisco. Much thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. Remember, go to squarespace.com/Duncan for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Duncan to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you to all my Patreon subscribers, and thanks to you for listening to this episode of the DTFH. May your life be filled with love, sweetness, abundance, peace, joy, and never-ending, hyper-accelerating orgasms that are gradually making you remember your true identity, an eternal soul enjoying the ocean of time like a dolphin surfing the waves towards the shores of infinity. What does that even mean? I'll see you soon. I love you. Hare Krishna.